guess, yeah, we just have like, questions in regards to, AlleyBoost and, so I guess we'll just get started with the interview. So,
Cool.
Yeah. So our first question is, if you can tell us a little about your journey and how AlleyBoost started.
Great question. Okay, so pretty much AlleyBoost started about, my journey with startup events in general started about 5 years ago. I was actually at Rutgers in Newark, and I had transferred out of Rutgers in Newark into a Montclair State in New Jersey. And I was really into startups at that point. I always wanted to launch a startup, but I didn't really know anybody like in the ecosystem. It was just like I wanted to launch a website. And then what happened was I was reaching out to all the different entrepreneurship clubs in the area because when I went over to Montclair, they didn't have an entrepreneurship club, so I wanted to start one. So that's why I started to reach out. So I reached out to everybody: NYU, Columbia, Fordham, Rutgers. I reached out to everybody. I was just trying to get like in contact with people who have done it before, so I could kind of start my own thing and kind of learn from them. And when I did that, I reached out to somebody who was at NYU. This guy, Haitham Al-Ambadi, who actually currently runs Catalyst Live, which is like another startup event company. And he was like, I'm running this thing called NYC Startup Mixers. He's like, would you want to get involved and just kind of, just be around the scene? And so for me, I was like, all right, I'll check it out. So we had done a few events together, and then that became like a thing where I was there for like pretty much like a year, pretty much interning. And we were doing NYC Startup Mixers. And then after about that first year, we rolled into this co-working space called Alley NYC, who made us their events team. And I did that for about a year. And I got to the point where I had done so many meetups, so many hackathons, so many events. Point where I was like, all right, I can do this in my sleep. So I was like, let me try my own thing. I launched about 2.5 years ago. So yeah, AlleyBoost has pretty much been around for about 2.5 years now. And again, it came out of just me being interested in the startup ecosystem, coming across a pretty cool opportunity to, do events. And I've been doing it ever since. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, great story. That's incredible, the amount of events and just stuff that you've been in.
Yeah, it was a mix of like interest and serendipity, and it all kind of worked out. So.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Do you have any other passion projects outside of that, or any other
Great
interests?
Great question. So actually, something I've also been working on for about a year and a half now. We're actually finishing up the MVP right now. Is a site called SportsWonks. It's pretty much a sports social network. Right now we have about 3,500 signups for the pre-launch, so I'm pretty excited about that. We actually got a lot of that through social media, believe it or not. So, but yeah, the gist of that one is it's pretty much a sports social network, but it's a little more sports-centric than like a Facebook or Twitter, where there's certain features that kind of complement sports. Like for example, there's a lot around like recent highlights and news and videos. As well as like a tickets page where people can actually buy tickets off of the site to go to sports games. And there's also like certain features where like you can kind of follow your favorite team, so you'll always be getting content from teams and athletes that you're actually interested in. So that's another thing I'm working on. We're really shooting for launching MVP in the next couple of weeks. So wish me luck on that.
Awesome, yeah. We could definitely shout out SportsWonks in the next step.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
As far as us meeting you back in May and everything like that, what were some of your top events this summer that you hosted or attended? Right.
So during the summer, to be quite honest, I feel like events are a little slower because people are on vacation. So summertime's tough. Throughout the year, I'd say the annual events that I recommend are probably NY Tech Day is probably NY Tech Day is one of the best. That's like pretty much they have about 500 booths throughout the day. It's kind of like a startup science fair where certain startups might be there because they want to hire talent. Some might be there because they want to meet precedent investors. Some might be there for early adopters. But it's just the biggest event in New York in tech annually. It's got some really incredible startups. It's again a full day thing. I'm definitely a huge fan of theirs. What else? We're actually doing something similar though in November where we're going to have 60 exhibitors. It's like a smaller version. But if you're looking for the big fish in that space, as far as startup expos, it's definitely NY Tech Day. Like I had mentioned, my one colleague Haitham from Catalyst Live, he's done some cool stuff. I know in the last year he had an event around wearables in tech, and so Carmelo Anthony actually has a fund called Mellow, I think, Tech Ventures, or level 7 venture, something along those lines. And it's all like wearables and that type of thing. And he hosted a panel for Carmelo Anthony. So that was really cool. He had like Carmelo there. He had a few like celebrities and all that. And they actually had like they had like booths going along the outside, like different like not like Fitbit, but like that type of thing, like those type of like wearables. And it was like really cool, innovative stuff. So I thought that was really well done. Yeah, I'd probably say, I mean, those are probably two of my favorite in the last year. And like Tech Day, probably at the event. Really.
That's awesome. And so at these events, who have you discovered or met lately that was really interesting, whether it be new startups or people in general?
Right, it's a great question. So, two startups that I'm pretty excited about that I actually met at our investor nights it was actually our last investor night. We did it at General Assembly. And I'll just give you a quick brief. Like, our investor nights are pretty much like a Shark Tank. We got 18 startups, 15 to 20 VCs, an audience of about 150. We split them up into 2 rooms. It's 5-minute pitches with a PowerPoint, 5 minutes of feedback, and then the judges vote for like best startup in each room. They win prizes from the sponsors, and then like the winner from each room pitches in front of the entire audience and all of the investors and all of the other startups. And so at the last one, we had our top 2 startups were actually really cool. One was Forward Lane, and they basically are doing artificial intelligence for wealth management. And then the other one was Buddy Health, who won the entire evening. They were first place, and they were like something along the lines of like health tech, artificial intelligence. That has to do with, I think, like pretty much like the way payments are processed with insurance. So it was just interesting because I kind of always keep an eye out to see like what's trending. And I think right now, I mean, one thing, I haven't seen the investors this excited in a while, but like when the AI, artificial intelligence startups pitched, like they were really into it. So I feel like AI is really hot right now. So yeah, those two are probably 2 that are like top of mind for me right now: Buddy Health and Forward Lane.
Okay.
So.
And with AI, do you mean also with like bot technology too? Are those type of things still really hot right now too?
I'm not too familiar with bot stuff. I know that like with as far as like their AI stuff, it has a lot to do with what is it specifically? It has to do with like them being able to kind of use the artificial intelligence to kind of like service tons of customers easily and effectively. As far as like bot stuff specifically, I'm not too familiar. But yeah, I mean, AI in general in like these complicated sectors, I think is going to be like a really good thing in the next couple of years. So excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for startups in general, what is one of your favorite growth hacks? Or do you have one?
One that I actually like is I know a lot of people aren't really a fan of. This is kind of like a social media one. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people aren't really a fan of like automated or bot marketing solutions. Right. But one thing I personally use is this thing called Tweepy, which I think is pretty cool. Pretty much what it does is because it's very targeted. So like the way it works is you have a Twitter account, for example, SportsWonks, right? What I do is I go in there and it allows you to pretty much like manage who you follow and unfollow. And they have like a certain clicker that allows, it takes like 5 minutes a day of like work. And pretty much what it allows you to do is like target a handle. So for example, I'll follow like a top sports writer, right? And then I'll pretty much follow their followers up to a certain amount every day, like within the Twitter limits. And then a lot of times, a good amount reciprocates, so you end up like gaining followers. And that's actually part of how I've kind of grown our Twitter following, and which has converted to a lot of signups for the launch. So that's been pretty good. Thing is, like, some people aren't really crazy about it because they feel like it's kind of spammy, but I feel like if you're targeting the right people, like for me, I only target like diehard sports fans on there. So like they follow and they're really engaged with the content and like they sign up for the launch. So I know like to me it's kind of a gray area when it's super targeted. So that's something I do as far as like social media hacking, if you want to call it that. That's been pretty effective, and I've used that for like multiple startups. So it's always been effective in its own way, whether it's event software or event series or sports sports startup. It's worked pretty much anywhere as long as you're targeting the right people. Mm-hmm. So that's been pretty good for me, for sure.
How do you make sure like your content is staying engaging? Like what works more effectively for your type of audience or startups in general?
Yeah, so I feel like it really depends on what the startup is, and you have to do a lot of like A/B testing. Mm-hmm. Like so, for example, I do a lot of the social media for my sports site and for the event series. So, like for example, for the event series, I'll probably post like once a day. Mm-hmm. I'll try to post like an article or something, or maybe usually one article and like one event that we have coming up, whether it's ours or partners, because I don't really want to like bombard our followers as far as like the event series stuff. But with sports, for example, I need to post like 5 to 10 times a day, because every time news breaks, I have to share it, because sports fans are always looking, like something happened like 4 hours ago in the sports world. It's old news, nobody cares. So you need to tell that news right away, and you need to be on top of it and consistent. So I think your strategy and like the type of content you're sharing and the amount of it is really contingent upon what your startup does and what your audience expects. Like, so you need to kind of tap into their psyche and figure out what how consistently they need stuff, what type of content they want. And once you kind of understand that, you need to A/B test different things. So you might try articles from websites. You might start blogging. You might it really depends, and maybe you might do both. It just really depends on like kind of A/B testing and seeing what works. Even with like graphics, you got to see what graphics that they are receptive to and which ones they aren't. It's a lot of A/B testing. There's a lot of like one thing I do actually is like I'll go into like analytics.twitter.com and I'll look for the days that have like really good traffic. I'll go to like the top tweets for that day and just kind of analyze and be like, all right, and if I do that every week, so then I kind of see like, all right, here's a trend. Like whenever it's breaking news, it does really well. If it's an injury, breaking news about injury, it does really well. Or a trade does well. Or certain things do well. I know certain things like a coach being hired isn't that exciting. You won't get that much action. It just really depends on and then that just takes time. It's not as long as you do. What I do is I set like weekly reminders to do these certain exercises. So as long as you have something consistent in your calendar and you're like consistently analyzing over time, you'll start to pick up certain cues and know like exactly what your audience wants to hear. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
that definitely resonates with us. So what are the type of posts that like perform like the best for you? Like, do you find that the news ones perform better, or do you find that something you create?
So for AlleyBoost, for the event series, what does well for us actually is like new, like really cool startups, right? So like I really so two things are really cool startups. Like for example, there's one called Rally. The other day, it's a friend of mine. He just launched about 2 months ago. Pretty much what they are is like a hotel tonight for co-working, meaning say you go to Workville, for example, which is a co-working space I work out of, where I'm at right now. Pretty much, so let's say I'm just making up a number. Okay, say it's $1,000 a month to rent from here, right, for a desk, right? If you go on Rally, they have like these deals that like literally cuts it in half for the first month. So okay, I go to Workville. I'm looking for a new co-working space. I go through Rally. It's listed as $1,000. You'll get it for $500 because you got it through Rally. After the first month, they renegotiate obviously and try to get like the full rent. But it's like a really cool startup, especially for people who are bootstrapping and trying to test out a space before they go into heavy commitment. And like I tweeted that, and people, a lot of retweets, a lot of favorites. A couple reasons. One is because it was like it's a cool idea. It's like number two, it saves people money. And number three, it's a startup ecosystem thing. Like, because we're a startup in a way. We do events, and he's like co-working space. So like, it resonated. It was it saved them money. It was like so many great things, like so many value adds for my community specifically. So that performed really well. And another thing within AlleyBoost specifically that does really well is anything around like kind of like self-improvement. Like, so like, book lists, people love. I get a lot of action on those. I write like, these top books we recommended, what we're reading. People really like that type of thing because, as a startup, you're always learning. You always have to wear so many hats. So like, people want great resources. So I found like hot startups and like just resources that can improve the startup do really well for AlleyBoost specifically. And for SportsWonks, what does really well is like big time breaking news. So like, for example, I remember I tweeted like the game-winning three-pointer of the college national championship last year, right when it happened, and it ended up getting like 300 or 400 retweets, just because like the timing of it and like it was like our audience. Yeah, it's like any kind of like championship that happens, like or like any crazy game winner. So like that type of thing, because it's like the timing is right. I mean, the audience already loves anything sports, and it's something that's memorable, and that like they really do want to share with their network because like they're like one of the first ones, and it's exciting and all that. So yeah, it's the same thing where it's really contingent upon what you're doing and like who your audience is. And again, these are things that I figured out over time. I didn't just like guess and these things were right. It's just a matter of like trial and error, and after a while, like kind of just through experience, I was able to identify what worked and what didn't.
Definitely. So in general, do you have any advice for new startups and entrepreneurs, not necessarily just focusing on social media, but in general, like where to get started and what major steps they need to take?
Right. So first thing I'd say is, get started. I mean, it's it's tough. I mean, I know a lot of people kind of get stuck in the planning stage, or like, have trouble getting, certain team members in who can maybe like build their products or whatever. I'd say with like a tech startup specifically, one of the biggest challenges is if you're not a developer, finding a coder. That's like the one thing I come across at a lot of my events. I get the whole question of, hey, I'm ready to do this or that, but I don't have the technical talent. So like, what should I do? Do you know technical co-founders? And like, it's really hard to find a good one, to be honest with you. So I mean, I feel like, as far as solving that problem specifically, I tell people this. I say, just go to, if I were them, I would just go to like technical meetups, right? Like go to like the WordPress meetup for a couple of weeks and just keep networking there and see if there's somebody who's interested in the same thing and like kind of they have good energy with, and maybe like discuss with them. Or honestly, I'm kind of for the idea also of like maybe hiring, if it depends on your budget. But if the reason I say find a co-founder is because like most people don't have budget, so like they're not going to shell out money to a dev shop or whatever. So you go find a technical co-founder, you give them some equity, and you guys are partners, and they build the thing, right? But if you can't if you can't find somebody and you do have the budget, then I'm not against the idea of like having a dev shop maybe create that first version, that just comes out the budget. But for the average entrepreneur who doesn't have that budget, I'd say go out, go to events, post the job boards. For SportsWonks, I found my developer through this newsletter called Startup One Stop. The lady Bonnie who runs it was really friendly. She's like, I'll post it for free, and I got a few inquiries. And ended up meeting my basically my technical co-founder for that one, just through like a job posting. But and then as far as like once you have that problem solved, I would say so it's actually funny. I have pretty much like a mentor who runs the Center for Entrepreneurship at Mercy College, and one thing that he taught me. But I feel like early on as a bootstrapping startup, you need some sort of like marketing engine. And he taught me this technique called ACRP. It's pretty much attention, conversion, retention, and propagation. And he's like, if you skip any of them, it all goes to crap. It's kind of like the thing behind it. So like for me, the thing is like what he taught me to do was like, if you're early and you don't have the budget to go out and buy ads and all that, he's like, create an ACRP. So create ways of getting your users' attention, create ways of converting them, create ways of retaining them, create ways of propagating and getting them to share. And he's like, for each one, just list mine, just do a strong list. And he's like, early on, just go with what a bootstrapping startup can do. So like a lot of it, go through that list. Maybe have certain things you want to do down the road that you can throw some money at. But early on, I'm sure there's quite a few things on there that are free. It's a matter of hustling. So like I would create some sort of like engine or like real plan around like, once you build it out, like how you're going to get it out there on the cheap initially, because it's like, a lot of, how do I say this? I feel like a lot of people have ideas of like how to market their company, but, they kind of overlook the fact that it costs money to do a lot of these things, like Facebook ads, whatever else. Like it's not cheap. If you don't have at least an angel around, it's like, unless you have like a really good day job, it's really tough. So I would just create, I figure out the developer part of it, whether it's giving up equity or if you have money going to dev shop, or I feel like those are pretty much your main two options. And then as far as like kind of once it's built, getting it out there, I would bootstrap the early marketing plan, and then once you get some traction, you get some users, then maybe go to like investors, for example, and say, hey, here's some traction we were able to get with like no funding, but just hustle, like throw me $100K and let me like really go like throw some fuel on the fire. So those are pretty basic, but like I think because me personally, as like since I run AlleyBoost, I meet a lot of startup founders, and those are kind of the two biggest problems a lot of them face that like they mentioned to me are like, number one, developing the product, and their second biggest problem is like getting people to sign up. So those are the biggest I see on like a consistent basis from early stage guys, which I see all the time through AlleyBoost, like on a weekly basis. And those are kind of like two things that I recommend as far as at least like because I feel like if you put enough time and effort on those two things, I feel like you kind of have an idea around whether or not this business is real or not, So, there's other things even prior to that you can do where it's like the lean startup model where like you create like a landing page and then you throw up some like really a couple ads and just see if anybody signs up. There's certain like even early there are things you can do, but I'm thinking more of you're serious about this idea and like you're ready to take next steps and like you've committed to it. But even before that, though, you should even consider like looking up into like lean startup methodology, which again goes into like creating, like for example, when I had SportsWonks, before I really put into it, I pretty much created like a landing page and put up a few Google ads for really cheap, like $20 or $30, and just tested it out to see if I got any signups. Right. And I got a good amount. And like another thing I did was before I really got into it, and this is why when we first started developing it, but like I didn't put in too much capital yet. Through AlleyBoost, I barter for booths sometimes. So like an expo, like TechCrunch or the Launch Festival, they'll come to me and say, okay, Jason, we're in New York this season and we want to get out to the New York City ecosystem. We'll give you a free booth for, throwing us in your newsletter on a consistent basis, etc. So I would take those booths actually and like I would go to a few of them and I just brought an iPad and like I just started asking people like, would you be interested in this idea? What features do you want to see? How you currently consuming your sports content, etc. Right? So I pretty much just like had them, and I had a couple hundred people like kind of fill that out. It gave me a good insight on like certain things like, and the first like 2 festivals or conferences I went to, everybody was like, we want to see content from our favorite teams and athletes. That's all we focused on early on. So yeah, I feel like it's a matter of again, even prior to jumping into developers and like ACRP and marketing, it's just kind of doing some sort of research around whether or not people even want the product. You know what I mean? So you don't want to spend time and money and effort and on something that nobody cares about, or there's not a big enough market or interest or whatever it is. So you kind of need to dig deep and figure out if it's worth your time.
Definitely.
Yeah, that was awesome advice. You killed that there. Especially for something as passionate as sports. What people, people like that are really interested in sports. They really need a passionate founder. To help that website grow, and
right.
that's awesome.
It's definitely eliminating all the noise of other sports teams and social media in general, because it would just be that one platform. So that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are actually all of our questions. I don't know if you have anything else to add, but you definitely did answer a lot.
If you want to plug anything else, I know I'm going to be attending the Startup Expo in November.
Right.
So yeah. I'll be there. If there's anything else you want to plug, feel free.
Yeah, definitely. No, so the expo, we're actually very excited to have you. I hope you're coming as well.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be really good. We're going to we did it last year. We had like 60 exhibitors and a couple thousand attendees throughout the day. Like I had said, it's kind of like an NY Tech Day, but on a smaller scale. It's a little more intimate. It's like 60 startups. And so, yeah, it's pretty much like a startup science fair, just different booths. If you're looking for jobs, if you're looking to find about new hot technology, if you want to meet, do some biz dev and, partnerships with startups, etc. It's a really good place. And if anybody, who's watching this wants to get a free ticket, they can use promo code FREEBOOSTER. That gets you free admission, so FREEBOOSTER, if anybody wants free tickets. So yeah, that should be really good. And that's and another thing actually we're working on is, so we want to get more into like annual events now. So we're actually planning on scaling our quarterly investor nights in like the first quarter of 2017. So we're actually going to do pretty much like an investor conference. We have like 100 or 150 VCs investors, where it's going to be kind of like a democratized demo day, where we have like 100 startups come and pitch for 5 minutes with like a PowerPoint. And so it's like a good opportunity if they're trying to raise money or whatever else. It's a really great place for them to kind of get the word out to the investor community in New York. So got that going on. And I'm excited actually about Shareflo. I see you guys have been doing some really cool things. I'm actually excited about your progress. From the product to the marketing, you're all doing a wonderful job. So I'm just kind of keeping an eye on you guys to see where that.
Appreciate the words. Definitely lots of exciting things coming up for you in the future too. So
Sure.
We're very excited. All right. Thanks, Jason.
Thanks so much. Have a good night.
All right, you too.